Welcome back to Construct 3 and welcome back to my platform optional extra series where I show you some stuff that you could add to your platform game. Today we're looking at air dashing, so the ability to dash in the air in one of 8 directions. So let's get started. First thing you're going to need is to insert a new object, and we're going to grab ourselves a keyboard. And that is one of the only objects that we need today. We're going to go to our player, we're going to add a new behavior, and we're going to use the tween behavior. The tween behavior is really useful. It animates between 2 points. So with that said, we can go straight to our event sheet today. I'm going to start by setting up a couple of global variables. So first one is going to be called vector x, and it's going to start at 0. We're going to copy and paste this and do vector y. And then what I also recommend is we'll take 2 more variables, and this is going to be dash distance, and this is going to be how far we can dash in a certain direction. And I'm going to set this to 400 just to begin with. You can play around and find something that works best for your game. And our last one is going to be called dash time. And this is how long it takes us to perform a dash from start to finish. And I'm going to get this down to half a second. So there's our variable set up. Let's look at our code now. So first thing I'm going to do is go to our keyboard, and we're going to use this key is down. I'm going to start by just checking if the left key is down. And if that left key is down, we're going to go to our system, and we're going to set value. And we want to start with our vector x. We're going to set it to -1. Once we've got that, we can copy and paste it, and we're going to do the same for right. And when we go right, we go up in the positives. So we're going to change our vector x to 1. I'm going to copy this one final time, but this time we're going to invert this. We're going to copy and paste it inside the condition, so it's still on line 3, and we'll check for the left direction as well. And if we're not holding down any key, we want to set this vector x back to 0. So what we're saying here is now we can tell if we're going right, left, or staying still with these 3 numbers. Now we can do the x direction, we need to do the y. Easiest way is hold down shift to click on all 3 of these conditions and copy and paste them all. Now we can just flip these round, so instead of looking at left, we'll look up. Instead of looking right, we'll go down. And then for our final 2, again, we're just doing up and down. This is checking if we're not pressing it. And then finally, we need to change our vector x to vector y. So make sure that your up is set to -1, your down is set to 1. And then if we're not pressing anything, we set it to 0. And that's the worst bit of today's code done. Now we can go to our events, and we can check if we're pressing the key that we want to dash with. So I'm going to use just the spacebar for that and hit done. And then we can go to our actions. This is where that tween behavior comes in. So we're going to click player, scroll down. We're looking at tween 2 properties. So we can give it a tag if we want, so we can recognize it. In fact, let's call it dash. But this is just the name that we can reference inside our code. We're looking at position. So our end x, we're actually going to take the player's current x position, and then we're going to add our vector x. I'm going to put this in brackets, so vector x. So if we're going all the way to the right, then it will have the value of 1, so we'll move 1 pixel right. If we're going left, it will take that away and we move 1 pixel left. Now I want to move more than 1 pixel at a time, so we're going to times this by our dash distance and close off the bracket. We can do the same for the vector y, so player.y plus, and then inside the bracket, and then we can do our vector y times our dash distance again. As for the time, we said this was going to be 0.5, but if we do our dash time variable, it just means we've got all our settings at the top that we can change. And that's all we need. So let's test and see what this looks like. So you see, if I press the space bar now, my character is able to zip around. Now actually, I think that 0.5 is a little bit too high, so I'm just going to change this to do 0.1. Let's test it again. So I've got far more control now over my character. Now, you see one issue that we have got is it's possible for us to clip through the ground. And this is not great for a game. Anytime your player's in the ground, it makes no sense. It looks strange. It looks like a bug. And in this case, it is a bug. So we're going to try and fix that bug now. So what we're going to do to fix this is right click on our player, edit the behaviors. I'm going to add a new one called custom. And the custom behavior has got some really useful properties, and we're going to make use of one of them now. It's going to add a brand new event. I'm going to do player is overlapping another object. I want to check if we're overlapping our ground. Now, if you've got multiple objects, you can just copy and paste this line and pick the other objects as well. And you just need to click on this edge here and make this an OR block. And this will check for any ground that the player is in. If we are in the ground, we're going to take our player, scroll down to our custom, and we've got this push out of solid. And we can choose where we want to push out of. So we can do the opposite angle that we came into the ground from. We can pick the nearest possible space for our player to come out of. But for this, we want to go up. We don't want to accidentally be pushed below the ground. We don't want to be pushed off to the side. We want it always to push us up out the ground. So I'll show you again. And you'll see that before I can even see anything going on, we've already been pushed out of the solid. So this is a really, really lovely bit of code that fixes that issue and stops us sort of going and clipping into the wall. Now we're currently able to just use and fly around with this. We want to make this a little bit less OP when using it in our game. So what we're going to do is make it so we can only use it when in the air. We can only use it a couple of times. So we'll start by creating a new variable. And this is going to be called number of dashes. I'm going to set mine to 2. You can set this to whatever number that you want, and you can even have items that you pick up that would increase it during midair. So let's start with the easy one first. We're going to say that if player, and then we're going to check if the player is on the floor. Then we can go to our system, and we can set the value of number of dashes back to whatever the default is. In my case, my default is going to be 2. So that's the nice easy bit. Now what we want to do is make it so we can only dash 2 times. So our rule for dashing is hidden space. We're just going to add another condition, and we're going to say system, scroll down, compare variable, and we're going to say dashed number of dashes is greater than 0. So as long as the number of dashes is greater than 0, we can keep dashing. We also want to add another condition to say that the player must not be on the floor. Now that's an optional one you might want to add. This will stop your player from just dashing across the floor really, really quickly. Once we've got that set up, we just need to add an action here and just go to our system and subtract from our number of dashes by 1. This means now I can only dash twice in one movement. So 1, 2, and I can't go again. Now you notice I get this sort of weird thing where I hit the ceiling and then my character just sort of stops. This is something you'll find quite commonly when using stuff like the tween setting. I want to show you a bit of a fix for this as well. So what we want to do is the moment that we start tweening, we want to actually take our player. We're just going to adjust the gravity, because what's happening is the platform behavior is pushing against it, and this is causing us to fall quite quickly after, and it feels like we've just hit a bit of a brick wall. So I'm going to set gravity, and I recommend 750, which is half of what it is by default, and this can go to the first line. Then we're going to do a check. You'll see that our tween property is called dash. We want to see when that's finished. So again, go to our player, scroll down until we get to the tween settings, and we want on finished, and then again we write the name dash, making sure that if it's lowercase here, it's also lowercase here. So when that tween is finished, we can then take our player and we can just set the gravity back. So find the setting where we talk about gravity, and the default is back to 1500. If you ever need to find out what the default is, click on your player and you'll see it's right here. So let's do one final test. And you'll see we get a slightly better effect where we're not hitting the wall as quickly. If you're finding that it's still not great like it was a little bit there, we can also just add one more final action to this and just add a small weight after we jump. So let's say 0.5 seconds and just put that above the gravity. So instead of turning the gravity back to 1500 straight away, we wait half a second. And this will mean that you get less of that bump ceiling sort of look, and the character sort of hovers for a little bit as well. So hopefully you've enjoyed this little tutorial that will let you have your player dash around the screen. Very much inspired by Celeste and Overwatch's Tracer. Let me know what other videos you'd like to see. I'll see you in the next video.